Hi, I'm John Sicotte, executive editor of the Brewer magazine. Welcome to another edition of the Brewer magazine podcast. We are sponsored by Keg Logistics, keglogistics.com/brewermag. Out combining craft beer with high quality dining. That's what Brian Graham, the co-founder of 4-Day Ray Brewing in Indianapolis, is all about. And he's going to dive into things with us about the things he learned from previous experiences in being part of a restaurant and how it's kind of shaped the last 9 years of 4-Day Ray. And he also talks about understanding your community, the evolution of beer styles, and the importance of creating a welcoming atmosphere that keeps customers coming back. We had a chance to catch up with him at the Craft Brewers Conference in Indianapolis. Check this out. This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency. Brian, thanks so much for joining us here on the Brewer Magazine podcast. We appreciate you taking the time here during CBC to have a chance to chat.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for reaching out, John. We're excited that it's here in Indianapolis. So we had a short drive from Fishers. Yeah.
For all the years that you probably have gone to CBCs before, and
yes,
it's always just such a schedule. You woke up at home and got on over here.
Exactly.
What are you here for? Because it's in Indianapolis, you want to obviously be here, represent yourself. I'm sure you guys have, a lot of people coming in, but what do you want to get out of CBC this year?
Yeah, we just really appreciate the educational tracks. That's why we go. It's our continuing education piece that we, invest in every year for the brewery staff. So we're all here. I do typically the business tracks, and the guys do the technical brewing stuff, and, we come together and we're, oftentimes there's a lot of decisions on an annual basis that are made on information that we gather when we're here.
Sure. How much of a deep hacking is it? I know, with my wife who works in the computer industry, she gets sent out to these things, and she has to do presentations and get out there and have a PowerPoint after of what she learned so she can share it with the team. Not that involved for you guys. I'm assuming it's a sit around and say, this is what I got out.
Yeah. There's so much information here. You kind of have to sort of sift through it. Most things are great ideas, but you can't do it all.
Yeah.
You can put a lot of pressure on yourself coming to, this kind of event where there's just so much, and you can feel like, oh man, I'm not doing enough. But that's not what it's trying to, that's not what it's for. So, we try to gravitate towards things that make sense for us, where we're at in our journey, and then focus on those and change the things that we can do and have an immediate impact.
Yeah, well, let's dive into a little bit about the brewery that you guys got going here in the Indianapolis area, 4-Day Ray. You guys going on your 9th anniversary?
Yeah,
exactly.
2016,
when it started. What was kind of the key points to getting open, and why you guys have gone 9 years? What's been some of those key points for you that you feel have really helped you guys continue to stay on?
Well, I think in my past life, I had a restaurant. I went bankrupt over that. It was definitely a very expensive lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Being undercapitalized is definitely one of the most difficult things that you can do when you try to start a business, any business, right? We heard the keynote speakers today. They were 2 years in, and they, still hadn't finished their build out, and just things come up, and you just can't plan for everything. Yeah. So being undercapitalized was definitely a lesson that I learned for sure. And then, just you can't do it all by yourself either.
Yeah.
You really need a good team of people that have different strengths than you do to help bring the process along and where it needs to. Instead of trying to learn everything on the fly while you're doing that, you can do that. And, it's I've been a home brewer since '97, but I'm not a professional brewer.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to get the business off the ground and then run the business, try to learn how to brew professionally. That just didn't seem like a good path for me. And smart, really, to make sure that we had a successful business that was going to, have a longevity to it.
Yeah. 2016 is an interesting time to open a brewpub model. I don't think a lot of people thought about it. Was there just nothing in the area and you thought this is what it is? Because of your background of having a restaurant, it was important to you.
And nowadays people are looking towards, how do we get more food trucks, or how do we bring it in, because the food truck doesn't show up sometimes. You guys have that concept of being able to already have the food in-house. Why was it important at that point to start like that?
Well, it was an interesting time because you saw everyone trying to do the tap room model. There was no food. I mean, even Sun King, I mean, they just didn't want to deal with it, right? They didn't want to open with food. And with my culinary background, I mean, food goes with beer, right? I mean, it provides the community that you need. And then just the way people eat in Indiana, it's confusing for people when they're like, wait a minute, I'm going to order food from somewhere else and I'm going to bring it here.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to build a successful business that's going to like generate revenue, like you really need to understand, okay, well, what are people going to do here? Similarly, what Trillium talked about earlier,
right.
It's like creating an experience. And if you just have, a tap room with, just nothing really other than some bar games and whatever, that's probably not going to appeal to a wide audience. Where if we just work on focusing on making the beer, pairing that with really good food, having good service, you're probably going to transcend just, oh, it's a brewery, because we carry wine and we carry spirits, because we know not everybody wants beer. And, we've had similar stories to what they were talking about, people getting engaged at our place. We've had a wedding there, people having their first date. I mean, those are really cool stories. That it's really cool to know that we've created that place where people can just enjoy themselves.
How important is the food to you? Like, I mean, it's not just bar food. I think a lot of times people do think that right away, like, oh, we'll get, pizza's great, looking at how you guys are set up, just looking online, like, you guys are a high quality restaurant, as well as making sure that the beer goes well with it.
Right.
Was that from the beginning? Like, you opened that way, or did you kind of build yourself into it?
Well, it was interesting. The first iteration of the brewery, I was going to do the tap room, but I wanted to have street food with it, but we would make it, so just, good food cost items, different kinds of tacos and things like that. And then once it started to materialize that we weren't going to do like an industrial, type atmosphere, then I told my business partners, I'm like, guys, look, I mean, we're going to need a restaurant. Like, I just went bankrupt over one. Like, that's the last thing I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So it was very evident in the area that we were in that we were going to need to have a brew pub concept and not just try to do, this tap room with, menus and bring in food trucks. Again, where we're located outside of Indianapolis, that's not how people eat, and it's just, they want to be able to understand the concept. They want to, and that also allows you to be top of mind for people, because it's like in their normal, like what they do, when I'm going out to eat, these are the options that I consider. Whereas if it's just a tap room with, some pretzels and whatever, you're an after or before sort of destination. And so, you get thrown into the right mix of things to be able to actually generate some revenue.
Yeah, and location's important too, because, obviously where you guys are located, it is a very, what would you describe the clientele as? It's a higher income area, right?
Yeah,
because
it's an affluent area of Indianapolis. It's in Hamilton County.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's exactly the area that we're in. So we learned a lot of things, right? Like, people don't really care about growlers. They just want to grab a six-pack and go, right? I mean, that's good for branding. But, growler sales, they're okay, but it's not like, you don't have the craft beer market that you would see in Marion County, where, the audience and guests are skewed younger. Where up there, we have a more mature clientele. They're older, and we're probably attracting them. It's cool that we're a brewery, but they come there because we have, the facility's great. We give good service and the food's really good. So they know that no matter what the group is requiring or who wants what, like, we can hit it on all cylinders for them.
Yeah, I want to talk about ambiance in a second, but let's talk about the beer first and foremost. Yeah. Has it changed because of maybe the clientele, or, I mean, obviously styles are going to change from the time you opened in 2016 to now. New England IPAs weren't probably a thing at the beginning. I'm sure you have a couple on tap, but at the same time, that brew pub feel, people think about that in the back of their head and they instantly go with the, the amber, the lager, the red. Did you guys start with that? Did you build into it? Like, how has your beer profile adjusted itself?
Actually, it really hasn't changed too much. When my business partner, who's our head of brewing operations, when Mitch and I were talking about like what we saw and what we wanted, it was all low ABV, things that people can, again, beer is community, right? And you're creating that. And so you think about what happens in, English pubs, right? People are there for a long time. They're having conversations, right? But when you're drinking beer that's like 6.5 and above, like you can't drink that many, so lower ABV stuff is better for the brewer. It's better for the proprietor. It's better for the consumer. And look what we're experiencing now. You have all these, non-alcoholic, is popular. So I think people are getting back to beer-flavored beer, right? So like, give me a really nice lager or, something in like that. So, I think it's almost kind of come full circle of where we were when we started. And, our number one selling beer is Blood Orange Blonde. It's a 4%, fruited American blonde ale. And I mean, it's a good boat beer, it's crushable. Is it my go-to thing, or would you walk into a craft beer bar and try to sell that to somebody and they would just turn their nose up at you because it's like, well, I mean, that's a Blood Orange Blonde. Like, where's your, triple dry hop New England IPA, and it's like, we only have generally 2 IPAs on at a time. Right. Okay. And, and I think now these days, I think the craft beer industry has sort of IPA'd themselves out of popularity, and they've forgotten all the other styles, that are around that people could be drinking, but people associate craft beer that it is IPA, which that's not it.
Right. What's old is new, and it's nice to be able to see that come back, because there's so much history there that you can build off of. And to some, especially, I mean, younger drinkers or people that are just kind of understanding craft beer and getting away from macro lagers, it's like, wow, this is a step for them that you didn't realize. And I think we lost them for a while because of, like you said, the IBU highs and the bitterness extremes and things like that. So it's nice to be able to see that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Well, ambiance, I do want to talk about that, because how important is it, and like, how do you design a place, like, especially when you start to feel you understand your audience a little more? How has that kind of affected what you guys are and how you guys are perceived?
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.
Yeah, I think it's more like an experience. Just like, I keep going back to the guys this morning with Trillium. When you can walk in and kind of how you feel comfortable in an area or in a space, right? I think that's really where it starts. And it's like, would I hang out here? Do I, does this resonate with me? Like, and just asking those questions. And I think that if you're the one designing it, right? So you're going to be way more critical than, someone walking in. But if you can create a space that's warm, inviting, that feels comfortable for people, not too pretentious, but just like, it's a nice space that you want to be in.
Yeah.
Like, we have the number of ladies that come in to our establishment is just mind-boggling. And if you have women coming into your establishment and you have menu items that appeal to them, they're just going to bring everyone else with them. And like, we're talking groups of ladies, and not just younger ladies. Like, we get it's the 65 plus group. We have a group that's a regular there. We call them the lunch bunch, and these ladies, they're probably all at least over 68 to 70.
Oh, wow.
And they sit at the bar, and they're Mug Club members, and I mean, it's awesome to see. So I think that really tells you volumes about what the vibrancy of it is, and that you've really hit something that resonates with people.
Very neat. Well, how about the fact that you guys went, I think it was just last year, a year and a half ago, you guys opened up a second location, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was last year.
Last year, so in 2024. How's it going, first off? Like, are you learning new things, or did you kind of build that to be like, we started here, now it's Noblesville, right?
Yorktown.
Oh, Yorktown,
yep,
thank you.
Just right outside Muncie. Yeah.
And how has that, what have you learned from that, either from going into it or seeing a different area and that, a different clientele? How has it changed, and how do you make it the same?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the area we went into was, I would say, kind of a restaurant desert. Yorktown, like lots of small towns, is revitalizing itself. They want like a downtown central area where they can provide community for people. And so the building that we went into was kind of similar to what we're in, It's got apartments on the top level, and then there's retail on the bottom. And the town really wanted us there. So again, that relationship was really important in Fishers because the city was really involved in helping us get there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Yorktown. They really wanted us there. And so, they really helped and, wanted us to be successful. So I would say, with the smaller town, it's tough, right? People are really ingrained in their patterns of whatever they're doing in their daily lives. And you have to break that down. And I would say that, just the general population there is a little bit older.
Yeah.
So just figuring out, well, how do we communicate, right? Maybe social media isn't necessarily the way. Like I did a direct mail piece.
Oh, wow.
I can't even tell you the last time that I did traditional marketing like that, but it was effective, and people. I mean, it brought some business in. So we're learning some lessons. It's slow going, but I think the longevity and just people knowing that we're invested in the community up there, similar to what
Sure.
we've done in Fishers, they can see the impact that we're making. And we have hardly had any turnover from our management staff up there. So when people come in a small town, it's really important for them to see the same people all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it feel comfortable, and that's what they can kind of buy into, that we're not just up there just kind of, just money grabbing or whatever. So
I'm assuming the across the bar sales are very key for you guys. Do you have distribution anywhere? How does that play into just the overall model of the business?
Yeah, so I mean, we would call it a hybrid model.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we would thought that distribution was going to be a little bit more significant than what it is in our model right now. But we cover probably about 3/4 of the state.
Okay.
We work with bud distributors. We like their network. It fits with the way we do business.
Yeah.
They're just real, upstanding guys. They're local to their area, so it helps, right? Because they know the area versus you got someone who's just covering the whole state. I mean, they don't necessarily know all the places where they're distributing their beer. So that works out. And I would say there's definitely shelves are shrinking. We've seen it, and we try to be smart with the resources, and we don't necessarily have a full-time salesperson out, just because that person has to sell a lot of beer to pay for themselves.
Right.
And the distribution model, I mean, it's just tough right now. And just to have that as your sole revenue source, I think would be extremely difficult and lots of stress.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, across the bar obviously is a much better profitability. Than
exactly.
Which is the the driving force here. Are you happy with what you are doing right now? Like, is there things that you want to change that you see, whether it's how to increase sales in the tap room, how to boost distribution? Seems like you're not that's fine with what you're at. Is that how do you get more butts and seats to buy one more beer every time that they're there?
Right. I would think the location that we have in Fishers right now, what it is missing is that large kind of communal area where, like I'll use the term beer garden, but in the restaurant and the space that we have, I mean, we really need to turn tables, right, so that we can monetize the revenue that we're generating. So we don't really have any space for people to come in and like take up a table of 12 for people to have 2 beers over 3 hours and just sit there and occupy space.
Sure.
And so, that's tough at Fishers. And I think, the next location that we have, that's probably something that we would like to build in, to have that there. And I think it's going to need to be the right location to be able to, to draw people in that are interested in that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if our location was in Marion County, I mean, that would be a no-brainer. We would need, places to hang out, just like Guggenheim House does. I mean, that space is great, right?
Yep.
But that's one thing that we wish we had at this point. But yeah, I mean, there just really isn't anywhere to do it there, and that's more of an experience, right? Because then you can have live music out there, and you can have more of a festival type feeling. But that's just lacking where we're at right now. So, but yeah,
nice. I always like to end things with some fun off-the-wall questions, get to know you a little bit, and I don't have them in front of me, so I'm just going to make some up off the top of my head that I can remember from previous podcasts. You a coffee drinker?
I am.
All right. Are you? How do you take it? Why do you take it that way? And is cold brew in play for you?
Yes. So I take it black.
Okay.
Generally, it's too hot for me, like volcano hot, and I want to be able to drink my beverage. So I'll usually have 2 to 3 ice cubes
Okay.
in the coffee to help just cool it down so I can drink it immediately. I do love nitro cold brew.
Okay.
It's like, and I take that black as well. And I like the flavor of coffee, and so like just anything else in there is just getting in the way of the roastiness of the coffee. I'll do half and half every once in a while, but I try to lower or I try not to eat or consume any other sugar besides the beer that I drink, because I already drink enough beer. So having like the macchiato, caramel, blah blah blah, that's not for me.
I am like barely fill the bottom of the cup with a creamer, like just a plain creamer, like maybe vanilla flavor or something like that. I've actually gotten to the point, I didn't know it could do this, but like those like 128 ounce creamer bottles, the top can get moldy. And I found out the hard way when I was like, why does this taste weird? Because that's how slow it takes me to drink. Like,
oh my gosh.
So now I have to order. It's like, cost effectively to buy it. And I'm like, no, because it's like gross. I have to like clean the top now. But I'm the same way where with heat. And actually, it was on a previous podcast when we talked about this. Is for the first time I was standing there and I poured my coffee. My wife likes it hot, so it's always hot, and then I have to wait. And I saw the food temperature thermometer, and I'm like, I'm going to see what and it was like 155, 160 degrees or something like that she pours it out. And then my sweet spot, 120 to 125.
Yeah, that's probably like right on.
And when you said the ice cubes, I mean, when we're out to eat at a diner or something like that and they pour you coffee, I'm like, okay, well now this is going to sit here until the end. So I usually order a water, spoonful of ice cubes, and I can finally drink it. And it's like, I've never understood. I get why they're these tiny little 8-ounce cups, but that's 3 sips for me. Like, you better just keep coming back.
Or just put the craft right here.
Please do. Yes, exactly. So let's see. What else can I think of off the top of my head? I've always had some good ones. You're a home brewer, so maybe this would be a fun part. Like, if you're on a deserted island.
Yep.
And obviously you don't have you have experience in brewing, but you don't have master pro brewer type of experience.
Yep.
How would you go about trying to make alcohol to, either safe drinking water, something sustainable to drink? Could you be on a deserted island? Could you figure out a way to make beer? What would you do?
I could make a fermented drink, probably out of coconuts or any sort of indigenous fruit that was there. Probably grain is not going to be necessarily available, but I could find something to ferment and then just do a wild ale fermentation and experiment
just
that
let
way.
It sit there to see. I think it would be interesting. I guess it depends on the island too as well, but yeah, that would that be a key point? Because I think having that knowledge, we know that people got sick because they were drinking bad water. At least we have that, if we make a fermented product, we might get drunk, but at least we won't get sick.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I don't feel so good in the morning, but man, I'm healthy, I don't have dysentery, and I'm not gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring it back to beer to end things off. What is a brewery that either you wish that you had started, a beer that you wish you would have made, and as just that entrepreneur side of you, wow, that was great, and I wish I could have been them.
So there is a brewery in Grand Rapids, Michigan, called the Brass Ring.
Oh yeah.
And they are they're certified by Camera, and so they do cask ale, for real ale. And I just was there for the first time last year, and I mean it's great to see a place like that being able to stay open and have people understand what they're doing, and that just warms my heart as a beer person, because that's the reason that I started home brewing. And I feel like a lot of that stuff people just don't appreciate, and so you can't get it imported anymore because the stuff is so old anymore. It just sits on a shelf, nobody knows what it is. And so I told the lady that was working the door, she's like, oh my gosh, I wish my husband was here to hear you say all this, because we were just concerned that no one would understand what we're doing, and we'd have to close down. I was like, no, please, continue doing what you're doing, because it's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Do you still homebrew at all?
I do once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And if I do, it's generally a Belgian Saison, and it's a lighter version that's lower alcohol. because it's always funny. There's great articles about like you can brew a saison, but don't call it a saison because no one knows what a saison is, and it's like a beer. It's a brewer's beer, right?
Yeah.
And but it's so good with food, and so. But yeah, that's I like to brew that.
Yeah. Now, do you cheat a little bit being able to have like the stuff at the brewery, or are you very much still?
No, I just go to the homebrew store. I visit with those guys, and what's that?
What do you brew on then?
I have my own system at my house.
Nice.
Yeah, it's 2 kegs and then Blickman boiling kettle, and yeah, I just go to town there, and I do the saison because it's easy.
Yeah.
I don't need refrigeration.
Yep.
I just let the temperature rise on it, and get all the nice phenolics out of it. And
That's
there
awesome.
you go.
Well, Brian, thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure, John. Thanks.
This Brewer Mag podcast is sponsored by Keg Logistics. Now's the perfect time to review your keg management strategy. Whether you're seeking a truly flexible keg rental program or intrigued by the seamless distribution freedom of paper fill, Keg Logistics is ready to craft a personalized solution for you, ensuring you receive the kegs you need precisely when you need them. For details, visit keglogistics.com/brewermag. Keg Logistics, modern solutions for keg efficiency.